The discovery. Admiral Kex had seen many strange things during his 3 centuries of monitoring Earth, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The familiar comfort of his office, with its quantum-stabilized temperature controls and carefully calibrated gravity fields, suddenly felt insufficient as he stared at the readings on the data pad before him. Junior analyst Plex, still catching his breath from his rushed entrance, watched anxiously as his superior's antenna twitched, a rare sign of genuine concern from the usually stoic admiral. The energy signatures dancing across the screen defied everything they knew about physics, everything that should be possible according to the combined knowledge of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. "Run the analysis again," Admiral Kex ordered, his third eye fixed unblinkingly on the global monitoring display while his other 2 eyes scanned through historical data comparisons. "And get me a direct feed from our orbital satellites." "Already done, sir," Plex responded, his sensory tendrils vibrating with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. 3 times. The readings are consistent. The humans are somehow moving matter instantaneously across space without any energy signature we can explain. The orbital feed materialized in the center of the office, a holographic representation of Earth with bright points of light flickering across its surface like a cosmic light show. Each flash represented another impossible event, another human simply disappearing from one location and appearing in another, with nothing but a brief energy spike to mark the transition. Their social media networks are flooding with what they're calling skip stories, Plex continued, pulling up streams of human communications. "They're treating it like entertainment, sir. Like it's all just normal." Admiral Kex felt a headache building in his central cortex. Humans had always been problematic to monitor, with their constant innovations and complete disregard for what should be impossible, but this was different. This wasn't just another case of them finding new ways to make their food dangerously spicy or turning their primitive jokes into weapons. This was fundamental. "Show me the first recorded instance," he commanded, pushing aside his now-forgotten cup of Zalabian juice. The holographic display shifted, focusing on a point in North America. The timestamp indicated it had occurred 47 Earth hours ago. The recording showed a human female, apparently late for what they called a job interview, activating something on her personal communication device. There was a brief flash of blue-white light, and she simply ceased to exist in one location, appearing instantaneously 20 kilometers away. "They're calling it the Skip app," Plex explained, pulling up the application's interface. It was released by a small tech startup called Quantum Leap Technologies. Their public statement claims they've been developing it in secret for 3 years. 3 years? Admiral Kex's antenna went rigid. "We've had no indication of this technology's development. Nothing in their scientific publications, no unusual energy readings, no prototype tests." "That's just it, sir," Plex said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. According to their release notes, they didn't need any major infrastructure or testing facilities. They claim they solved it all mathematically first, then developed what they're calling a quantum field manipulator that can fit inside their standard mobile devices. The Admiral's headache intensified. He'd spent decades studying human technology, watching their progression from primitive combustion engines to their first stumbling attempts at quantum computing. This wasn't just a leap forward, it was as if they'd simply decided to ignore the normal rules of technological advancement entirely. Their public forums are filled with discussions about commercial applications, Plex continued, scrolling through more data streams. Transportation companies are already negotiating licenses, real estate markets are fluctuating as commute times become irrelevant, and there's something about revolutionizing pizza delivery. "Pizza delivery," Admiral Kex repeated flatly. His third eye twitched. "They've mastered instantaneous matter transportation, and they're using it to deliver pizza." "Well, sir, they're using it for everything. The app has different settings for different transportation ranges and mass calculations. They've even integrated it with their existing navigation systems. You just select a destination, confirm the safety protocols, and skip." The Admiral turned to stare out his office window at the vast expanse of space beyond. Somewhere out there, on a small blue planet that had been designated as a Level 3 developing civilization, humans had just casually rewritten the laws of physics. And they were treating it with the same enthusiasm they showed for their cat videos and social media challenges. "Contact the Galactic Council," he ordered finally. "Maximum priority." "And Plex?" "Yes, Admiral. Get me everything you can find about this quantum leap technologies. Their employees, their research, their funding, everything. Something tells me we're missing a crucial piece of this puzzle." As Plex hurried away, Admiral Kex watched another energy spike flare across the global display. According to the readings, someone had just skipped their entire family, including their pet dog, from New York to Los Angeles for what they were calling a weekend trip. The Admiral's third eye closed in resignation. He'd have to file a report about this, and for the first time in his career, he had absolutely no idea how to explain what he was seeing. The humans had done it again, they'd taken what should have been impossible and turned it into an app. And somehow, he suspected this was just the beginning of a much larger problem. The next few hours were a blur of activity as the monitoring station transformed from its usual state of quiet observation into what humans might call a madhouse. Reports flooded in from other observation posts around the solar system, each confirming what Admiral Kex already knew: humanity had achieved something that should have been impossible. Professor Lax arrived first, her usually immaculate tentacles indeed in disarray as she materialized in the station's primary conference chamber. The leading expert in quantum physics among the Galactic Council's Scientific Advisory Board, she immediately demanded access to all raw data from the monitoring systems. "This can't be right," she muttered, her 8 eyes scanning multiple data streams simultaneously. The energy requirements alone for what they're claiming to do would be approximately equivalent to the output of a small star, Dr. KNX finished for her, having arrived moments later. Yet they're doing it with devices that fit in their pockets. Admiral Kex watched as more scientists arrived, each adding their own expressions of disbelief to the growing chorus of impossibility. The monitoring station's primary chamber, designed to accommodate up to 50 beings comfortably, was quickly filling with some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy, all drawn by the impossible data streaming from Earth. "Admiral," Plex called from his monitoring station, "I've compiled the initial report on quantum leap technologies." The room fell silent as Plex projected the information into the center of the chamber. Images of a surprisingly small office building appeared, along with profiles of the company's key personnel. "Their core team consists of just 7 humans," Plex explained. "Led by Dr. Sarah Chen, a theoretical physicist who was previously considered something of an outsider in their scientific community. Her papers on what she called quantum field manipulation through geometric folding were largely dismissed by her peers." "Geometric folding?" Professor Lax interrupted, her tentacles writhing in agitation. "That's not even a valid scientific concept." Nevertheless, Plex continued, she and her team developed their theory in relative obscurity, funded by a small group of private investors. They claim they discovered a way to create what they're calling quantum shortcuts through spacetime, using a combination of principles from quantum entanglement and something they've termed spatial geometry recursion. Dr. KNX, who had been furiously making calculations on his personal data pad, suddenly let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "It's elegant," he whispered. "Horrifyingly, impossibly elegant. They're not breaking the laws of physics, they're just ignoring the parts that don't suit them." Admiral Kex felt his headache intensifying. "Explain." "Instead of trying to overcome the energy requirements for traditional matter transportation, they found a way to fold space itself. Like creating a temporary wrinkle that connects 2 points. The energy signature we're detecting isn't from the transportation process, it's just a side effect of their field generation method." The room erupted in a cacophony of scientific debate, with terms like quantum coherence and spatial topology being thrown around with increasing urgency. Admiral Kex noticed that Professor Lax had begun stress molting, a sure sign that she was deeply disturbed by these developments. Admiral, Plex called again, his voice cutting through the chaos. There's more. They're planning to release an updated version of the app next week. They're calling it Skip Pro. The room fell silent once more. What, Admiral Kex asked, dreading the answer, does Skip Pro do? According to their press release, it removes the current range limitations and adds something they're calling Group Skip Coordination for mass transit applications. They're also mentioning something about orbital capabilities. The Admiral's third eye began to throb. Humanity, it seemed, wasn't content with merely rewriting the laws of physics, they were already planning to release Physics 2.0. As he watched another series of energy spikes dance across the global display, Admiral Kex couldn't help but wonder, what would happen when humans realized they weren't alone in the universe? And more importantly, what would they do with this technology once they did? The answer, he suspected, would either usher in a new age of galactic civilization or give him the biggest headache of his career. Possibly both. The Skip Pro crisis. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber hadn't been this crowded in over a millennium. Representatives from every major spacefaring civilization packed the vast amphitheater, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of tentacles, appendages, and sensory organs. The usual protocols for maintaining proper diplomatic distances had been completely abandoned as everyone pressed closer to hear the latest updates from Earth. Admiral Kex stood at the central podium, his antenna still twitching from what had become a permanent state of stress. It had been exactly 1 Earth week since the release of the original Skip app, and things had only gotten more complicated. Honorable representatives, he began, his voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field, I regret to inform you that our worst predictions regarding humanity's quantum skipping technology have been insufficient. A murmur rippled through the assembled beings. Grand Chancellor Vex, his ceremonial headrest now permanently drooped, leaned forward in his gravity chair. Explain, he commanded. The Admiral gestured, and a holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing Earth and its immediate orbital space. Countless points of light flickered across the planet's surface, but now there were also traces of energy signatures extending well beyond the atmosphere. As predicted, Quantum Leap Technologies released their Skip Pro update this morning, Earth time, Admiral Kex reported. Within hours, humans began appearing on their moon. The chamber erupted in chaos. A representative from the Proxima Coalition fainted, their crystalline form tinkling against the floor. Several members of the Rigel Confederation began stress-shedding their outer layers. Their moon. Professor Lack's voice cut through the disorder. Without protective suits. Without life support systems. They've integrated their quantum field manipulation into what they're calling a skip bubble, Admiral Kex explained, bringing up technical diagrams that have been casually posted on human social media. It apparently maintains atmospheric integrity and artificial gravity during the skip process. They're treating it like a natural extension of the technology, just another feature update. Dr. KNX, who had finally recovered from his fainting spell of the previous week, began muttering calculations under his breath. The power requirements for maintaining a stable quantum field of that size across lunar distances should be irrelevant, apparently, Admiral Kex interrupted. They're doing it with the same personal devices, just with an upgraded application package. The skip bubbles seem to be an emergent property of their field manipulation technique. The holographic display shifted to show social media feeds from Earth. Humans were posting what they called selfies from the lunar surface, complaining about lunar dust on their shoes, and debating the best locations for taking aesthetic moon shots for their various social platforms. This is beyond concerning, Grand Chancellor Vex declared. A species that has barely mastered basic fusion technology has now achieved casual interplanetary transportation. The implications for galactic security. With respect, Chancellor, Admiral Kex interrupted, knowing he was breaking about 17 different protocols, that's not actually our biggest problem at the moment. The chamber fell silent again, if possible even more completely than before. Explain, the Chancellor commanded again, his tone suggesting he was not looking forward to the answer. Admiral Kex took what humans would call a deep breath. According to their public development roadmap, Quantum Leap Technologies is planning to release another update next month. They're calling it Skip Universe. The silence in the chamber became, if possible, even more profound. Even the usual background hum of life support systems seemed muted. They've already posted preliminary documentation for developers, the Admiral continued, bringing up more screens of human technical specifications. They're talking about something called quantum pathway mapping that theoretically allows for unlimited range skipping. Professor Lack's tentacles went completely rigid. They can't possibly, they haven't even discovered the existence of other civilizations yet. They can't just start appearing randomly across the galaxy. Actually, Plex interjected from his position near the podium, according to their beta testing notes, they're implementing something called safe skip protocols that prevent materialization in occupied spaces or hazardous environments. They're marketing it as a safety feature for blind skipping to unexplored destinations. Dr. KNX had begun stress shedding his outer carapace. They've not only mastered instantaneous matter transportation but also developed automated systems for detecting suitable materialization points across unknown space. In a week? 6 days, actually, Plex corrected. They had what they called a hackathon over the weekend. The Grand Chancellor's ceremonial headrest had completely collapsed. Admiral Kex, he said, his voice carrying the weight of his 10,000 years of service, what are your recommendations? Admiral Kex looked out at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, all waiting to hear how they should respond to a level 3 civilization that had casually upended the fundamental principles of physics and was treating it like a routine software release. Honorable representatives, he began, choosing his words carefully, I believe we have 3 options. First, we could attempt to intervene directly, revealing ourselves and trying to control the spread of this technology. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. Direct intervention in a developing civilization was strictly forbidden by galactic law. Second, we could try to secretly sabotage or disable their quantum skipping capabilities. More murmurs, these tinged with both relief and concern. Covert operations were technically legal, if frowned upon. Or third, the Admiral continued, his third eye fixed on the constantly updating display of human skip activity, we could acknowledge that humanity has, in their own unique way, achieved a level of technological advancement that qualifies them for contact under Section 7 of the Galactic Charter. The chamber erupted once again in debate. Arguments about protocols, traditions, and regulations flew back and forth. Some representatives were already drafting formal protests, while others were hurriedly consulting their governments about the implications of accepting humans into the galactic community. They're using it for pizza delivery, someone shouted, as if this fact somehow disqualified humanity from consideration. Their primary concern seems to be reducing commute times, another added. They haven't even unified their planetary government, a third protested. Admiral Kex waited for the chaos to subside somewhat before speaking again. While we debate, he said, his voice cutting through the disorder, humanity continues to advance. In the time we've been having this discussion, they've already established what they're calling lunar food trucks and are planning the first quantum flash mob on Mars. The chamber fell silent once more as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't going to wait for permission or recognition. They were going to continue pushing the boundaries of the human factor. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her phone's notification screen with a mixture of pride and mild anxiety. The Skip Universe beta test had just surpassed 1 million participants, and the feedback was overwhelming. She took a sip of her now cold coffee, her small office at Quantum Leap Technologies illuminated by the soft glow of multiple monitors displaying real-time skip data from around the solar system. Sarah, you need to see this. Marcus Wong, her lead developer, burst into the office with an excitement that reminded her of their early testing days. We're getting some really weird readings from the deep space probes. She straightened in her chair, instantly alert. The Deep Space Testing Program had been their most ambitious project yet, sending automated probes through quantum skips to the outer reaches of known space. Weird how? Marcus pulled up a holographic display, another recent innovation they'd spun off from their quantum field research. The probes are detecting something. Like echoes in the quantum pathways. Almost as if someone else is using similar technology, Sarah finished, her heart racing. She'd suspected this possibility ever since they'd first discovered the principles behind quantum skipping. The mathematics had seemed too elegant, too perfect to be entirely undiscovered. But that's not all, Marcus continued, expanding the display to show a complex network of quantum signatures. Look at the pattern distribution. These aren't random signals, they're organized. Structured. Like a transportation network, Sarah whispered. She stood up, her coffee forgotten. How far do these signatures extend? That's just it, we can't tell. They seem to fade out at the edge of our detection range, but that could be a limitation of our sensors, not the actual network. Sarah ran her fingers through her short black hair, a habit she developed during the long nights of initial quantum field testing. Have you told anyone else about this? Just the core team. We've been running verification protocols for the past 12 hours. It's real, Sarah. We're not alone out there, and whoever they are, they've been using quantum technology for a long time. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with another notification. The Skip Universe Beta had just logged its first confirmed jump beyond the solar system. A teenager in Nebraska had apparently decided to skip to what she thought was a newly discovered exoplanet, just to check it out. She'd returned safely, reporting nothing but empty space, but the implications were staggering. We need to go public with this, Sarah decided, already drafting a message to their PR team. If we're detecting their network, they can probably detect ours. It's only a matter of time before. Her words were cut off by a sudden flicker in the air at the center of her office. The quantum field sensors built into the building's security system went crazy as a point of light expanded into a shimmering disk of energy. Sarah and Marcus stepped back, watching in amazement as a figure stepped through. Admiral Kex had hoped to make first contact under more formal circumstances, but the human's rapid advancement had forced the Galactic Council's hand. As he materialized in what appeared to be a rather cramped office space, his third eye immediately focused on the two humans before him. One was clearly Dr. Sarah Chen, her image had been in all the briefing materials. The other must be Marcus Wong, her chief technical officer. Greetings, he said, grateful for the universal translator implanted in his speech centers. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we have much to discuss. To his surprise, neither human screamed, fainted, or showed any sign of panic at the sudden appearance of a three-eyed alien in their office. Instead, Dr. Chen smiled and gestured to a chair that looked wholly inadequate for his physiology. We've been wondering when someone would show up, she said, her calm demeanor making Admiral Kex's antenna twitch. Though I have to say, your quantum signature is much more refined than ours. Almost no energy leakage at all. The Admiral's third eye blinked rapidly. You expected us? Marcus Wong pulled up another holographic display, this one showing a map of what the Admiral recognized as standard galactic transport routes. We've been detecting your network for weeks. Beautiful architecture, by the way. The quantum pathway redundancy is especially elegant. Though you might want to look into your security protocols, Sarah added, pulling up yet another display. We've been able to map quite a bit of it just from the echo signatures. Is it true you're still using fixed endpoints for most transportation? We found that dynamic pathways are much more efficient, even if they do require more complex calculations. Admiral Kex, veteran of countless first contact scenarios, found himself completely at a loss for words. These humans hadn't just discovered quantum transportation, they'd already started improving on technology that had taken the galactic community millennia to develop. The Galactic Council has sent me to discuss the implications of your technology, he managed finally, trying to regain some control of the situation. There are protocols for emerging civilizations that... Oh, we'd love to discuss protocols, Sarah interrupted, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Especially your approach to quantum field containment. We've been working on some ideas for reducing energy bleed in the skip bubbles, and I bet you've solved a lot of the problems we're just now encountering. Also, Marcus added, we've got some thoughts about applying quantum field manipulation to other areas. We're calling it quantum engineering. The potential applications go way beyond just transportation. The Admiral's headache, which had briefly subsided, came rushing back with renewed intensity. These humans weren't just unafraid of advanced alien civilization, they wanted to compare notes. Dr. Chen, he said carefully, you do understand that your civilization has achieved something unprecedented? The development and public deployment of quantum transportation technology without any external guidance or contact is revolutionary? Impossible? Against the laws of physics? Sarah grinned. We get that a lot. But here's the thing, we didn't know it was supposed to be impossible. We just saw a problem that needed solving and found a solution that worked. The commute times in major cities were getting ridiculous, Marcus explained, as if this justified rewriting the fundamental laws of the universe. Sarah figured if space could bend, why not fold it instead? The math worked out, so we built it. Admiral Kex's antennae were now twitching so rapidly they were almost a blur. You developed quantum transportation technology, to solve traffic problems? Well, that was the initial application, Sarah admitted. But once we got the basic principles working, we started seeing all sorts of possibilities. Did you know you can use quantum field manipulation for energy storage? Or data transmission? We're working on a quantum internet prototype that should be ready for testing next month. The Admiral's third eye closed in resignation. He had come here to begin the careful process of introducing humanity to the galactic community. Instead, he was getting a technology briefing from humans who treated the impossible as merely an interesting engineering challenge. The Council will want to establish guidelines for the use of this technology, he tried again. There are safety concerns, security protocols. Oh, absolutely, Sarah nodded enthusiastically. We'd love to coordinate on safety standards. In fact, we've been developing an open-source framework for quantum field safety protocols. I can show you the documentation. As Dr. Chen pulled up more displays filled with technical specifications that somehow managed to both align with and completely append standard galactic theory, Admiral Kex realized that the Galactic Council's carefully prepared first contact protocols were about to become as obsolete as Earth's traffic jams. In the next room, the Skip Universe beta test logged its millionth extrasolar jump, and somewhere in Nebraska, a teenager was already planning her next quantum expedition to check out another solar system, just because she could. The future of galactic civilization had arrived, and it came in the form of a mobile app with a 4.8-star rating on the Humans digital distribution platforms. Galactic Disruption. The Galactic Council's Department of Technological Integration was experiencing what humans would call a meltdown. In the 3 Earth weeks since first contact, humanity had not only joined the galactic community but had begun actively reshaping it in ways that made senior bureaucrats' appendages tremble. High Administrator ZYX stood before the Council's emergency session, her crystalline form vibrating with stress as she delivered her report. The humans have submitted exactly 2,947 patent applications to the Galactic Patent Office in the last Earth week alone. Their open-source approach to quantum field manipulation has resulted in what they're calling a quantum maker community. Grand Chancellor Vex, who had given up entirely on maintaining his ceremonial headrest's position, leaned forward. Explain this maker community concept. They're sharing their technological innovations freely, ZYX explained, her crystals chiming in distress. Not just the quantum skipping technology, but all the derivative applications they've developed. They've created something called Quant Hub, a digital repository where anyone can access and contribute to quantum field manipulation code. Admiral Kex, watching from his designated observation post, felt his antenna twitch as he remembered his first meeting with Dr. Chen. She had warned him this would happen, but he hadn't fully understood the implications at the time. The humans have already begun collaborating with the Proximate Science Coalition, ZYX continued. They're working on something they call quantum fusion, a hybrid technology that combines our traditional energy generation methods with their quantum field manipulation techniques. Early tests suggest energy efficiency improvements of over 400%. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Energy technology was one of the fundamental pillars of galactic economics. Any significant disruption to established systems could have far-reaching consequences. That's not all, ZYX added, her crystalline structure now vibrating at an audible frequency. They've also started what they're calling quantum tourism. Humans are appearing at popular galactic destinations, taking pictures, and reviewing locations on something called Space Yelp. Professor Lax, who had been unusually quiet since first contact, suddenly spoke up. What about the quantum internet project they mentioned? Have they made progress on that? ZYX's crystals chimed in what might have been a laugh or a sob. They released the beta version yesterday. They're calling it QuantNet. It uses quantum field manipulation to create instantaneous data connections across any distance. Several younger civilizations have already begun adopting it over traditional FTL communication systems. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just joined the galactic community, they were actively transforming it, one innovation at a time. Meanwhile, in what had once been a small office building in Silicon Valley, Quantum Leap Technologies had expanded into a sprawling campus that now included several alien research teams. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the newly constructed quantum engineering lab, where humans worked alongside beings from across the galaxy, all united by their enthusiasm for pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The quantum fusion prototype is showing promising results, Marcus reported, falling into step beside her. The Proximans are especially excited about the potential applications in their crystal matrix systems. Sarah nodded, watching as a team of human and alien engineers worked on what looked like a combination of traditional fusion reactor components and quantum field generators. What about the QuantNet rollout? Any issues? Minor growing pains, Marcus shrugged. Some of the older civilizations are having trouble adapting their systems to the new protocols. But the younger ones are jumping in enthusiastically. The Rigelians have already quantum-enabled their entire entertainment network. And the safety protocols? Working better than expected. The quantum pathway mapping system is automatically detecting and avoiding potential hazards. We haven't had a single materialization accident since implementing the new guidelines. Sarah was about to respond and a familiar shimmer announced the arrival of Admiral Kex. The Admiral's third eye looked particularly strained today. Dr. Chen, he said, his antenna twitching rapidly, we need to discuss the implications of your latest patent filing. The quantum matter replication system? Sarah asked innocently, though she knew exactly why the Admiral was concerned. It's still in early development, but the initial tests are promising. You're talking about technology that could potentially eliminate scarcity across the galaxy, the Admiral said, his third eye fixed on her. Do you have any idea what that could do to established economic systems? Improve them dramatically? Marcus suggested, pulling up a holographic display of their test results. Look, we've already successfully replicated simple organic compounds. With some refinement, we could potentially solve resource distribution problems across multiple civilizations. Admiral Kex's antennae were now twitching so fast they were almost a blur. The Galactic Council is concerned about the pace of innovation. There are suggestions that we should establish some form of regulation. Sarah's expression turned serious. Admiral, with all due respect, that wouldn't work. The quantum genie is out of the bottle. We've already seen independent developers creating their own applications of the technology. Trying to regulate it now would just push development underground. She's right, Marcus added. Just yesterday, a group of teenage humans and young Proximans collaborated on something they're calling quantum gaming. They've figured out how to use quantum fields to create shared virtual spaces across galactic distances. They published the code on QuantHub before we even knew they were working on it. The Admiral's third eye closed in resignation. He had seen enough of human innovation by now to know they were right. Attempting to regulate their technological development would be like trying to stop a quantum skip with bureaucratic paperwork, technically possible, but practically futile. The Council is particularly concerned about your latest project, he said finally. Something called Project Infinity. Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. We were wondering when you'd ask about that, Sarah said, leading the Admiral to a secure research area. It's still theoretical, but we've been working on extending quantum field manipulation beyond normal spacetime parameters. Beyond normal spacetime parameters. The Admiral's antenna went completely still, a sign of extreme shock. Well, we figured if we can fold space, why not time? Marcus explained enthusiastically. The math suggests it's possible to create temporal quantum pathways, though controlling them is proving challenging. Admiral Kex felt his headache returning with renewed intensity. You're developing time travel, as a side project? More of a proof of concept, Sarah clarified. We're still working out the causality implications. But the potential applications for historical research alone are fascinating. As if on cue, a young intern burst into the lab, their excitement palpable. Dr. Chen. The quantum gaming team just figured out how to integrate temporal elements into their virtual spaces. They're calling it 4D gaming and they've already uploaded the source code. The Admiral's third eye began to throb. Humanity hadn't just disrupted galactic transportation and communication, they were now casually experimenting with the fabric of time itself, and treating it like a software update. In the Galactic Council chamber, High Administrator ZYX was still delivering her report, unaware that humanity's next technological revolution was already beginning. In conclusion, she said, her crystals chiming anxiously, we recommend establishing a special committee to study the impact of human innovation on galactic society. Grand Chancellor Vex, looking at the latest reports from Earth, knew it was already too late for committees. Humanity had introduced something far more potent than new technology into the galaxy, they had introduced the idea that impossible things were just problems waiting to be solved. And somewhere in Nebraska, a teenager was explaining quantum physics to a group of alien students through a quantum gaming channel, while casually working on her own temporal manipulation algorithm, just to see if she could make it work better than the official version. The galaxy would never be the same, and this was still just the beginning. The new normal. 1 Earth year after first contact, Admiral Kex found himself sitting in what humans called a coffee shop on the quantum-enabled space station, Harmony Hub, watching vessels from a dozen different civilizations quantum skip in and out of the nearby space lanes. His Zalabian juice, perfectly heated thanks to human quantum temperature regulation technology, sat next to a device that would have been unthinkable just a year ago, a quantum-enabled universal communicator that connected seamlessly to both QuantNet and traditional galactic networks. Your usual spot, I see, Dr. Sarah Chen said, quantum skipping directly into the chair across from him with a precision that still made his antenna twitch slightly. She was dressed in the informal style that had become increasingly common among both humans and aliens, clothing enhanced with quantum field stabilizers that allowed for comfortable travel through any environment. I find it provides an excellent vantage point for observing the changes we've wrought, the Admiral replied, his third eye tracking a group of young Proximans and humans who were engaged in what appeared to be a quantum-enhanced mixed reality game in the station's central plaza. Speaking of changes, Sarah said, pulling up a holographic display from her quantum device, have you seen the latest data from Project Infinity? The Admiral's antenna twitched again. Project Infinity, humanity's casual exploration of temporal mechanics, had been a source of constant anxiety for the Galactic Council over the past year. Please tell me you haven't actually succeeded in creating stable temporal quantum pathways. Sarah grinned. Better. We discovered why they weren't stable in the first place. Turns out we were thinking too linearly about time, trying to create point-to-point connections like we do with space. The breakthrough came from that teenage gaming group in Nebraska. The same ones who created the quantum gaming framework. The very same. They figured out that time isn't a line you can fold, it's more like a quantum field itself. They created this amazing visualization using their gaming engine. Here, let me show you. The holographic display expanded, showing a complex web of interconnected quantum fields that made the Admiral's third eye water slightly. This is time. This is reality, Sarah corrected. Space, time, and quantum fields all interacting together. Once we understood this, we realized we didn't need to create temporal pathways at all. The quantum skipping technology was already interacting with time, we just weren't seeing it. Before the Admiral could process this, his communicator chimed with an urgent message from the Galactic Council. Grand Chancellor Vex himself appeared in miniature holographic form, his ceremonial headrest now proudly displaying what appeared to be quantum field stabilizers. Admiral, Dr. Chen, the Chancellor nodded to them both. The Council has just received the most extraordinary communication. We're detecting quantum signatures, from another universe. Sarah's eyes lit up with excitement. The multiverse bridge worked. Marcus will be thrilled, he's been monitoring the experiment all week. I'm sorry, Admiral Kex interrupted, his antenna now practically vibrating, the what worked? Oh, right, I forgot you were on vacation last week, Sarah said casually. After we understood the true nature of quantum fields, we realized they weren't limited to our universe. The math suggested we could extend quantum pathways through the multiverse barrier. We set up a small test facility on Mars. A small test facility, the Admiral repeated faintly. To reach other universes. Well, we had to put it somewhere, Sarah shrugged. Earth's getting a bit crowded with all the quantum research facilities. Did you know there are now over 10,000 independent quantum development teams worldwide? The quantum maker community is really thriving. The Chancellor's hologram flickered as he processed this information. Dr. Chen, are you saying humans have achieved stable contact with parallel universes, as a side project? Oh, it wasn't just us, Sarah said quickly. We had great input from the Proximum quantum physics team, and the Rigelians provided some crucial insights into multidimensional mathematics. It's really been a collaborative effort. The quantum gaming community has already started working on cross-universal multiplayer capabilities. Admiral Kex took a long sip of his Zalabian juice, grateful for the quantum temperature regulation that kept it perfectly heated. In the years since humans had introduced quantum skipping to the galaxy, he had learned to accept the impossible as merely Tuesday's problem to solve. Wednesday would undoubtedly bring something even more extraordinary. There's more, the Chancellor added, his hologram flickering with what might have been excitement or anxiety. The quantum signatures, they're responding to our signals. It appears the other universe has its own version of the Galactic Council, but... Let me guess, Sarah interrupted, grinning. Their humans discovered quantum skipping too. Actually, in their universe, it was the Proximans who made the discovery, the Chancellor replied. But their humans were the ones who turned it into a commercial technology and started improving upon it. Some patterns, it seems, transcend universal boundaries. In the station's plaza, the quantum gaming session had evolved into what appeared to be a cross-species cultural exchange. Young beings from across the galaxy were sharing stories, ideas, and dreams, their quantum devices translating and enhancing their communication in real time. You know what this means, don't you? Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with the same enthusiasm that had led her to rewrite the laws of physics just to solve a traffic problem. That we need to establish protocols for cross-universal communication, the Admiral suggested hopefully. That we need to organize the first inter-universal quantum development conference. Sarah declared. Think about it, developers from multiple universes sharing ideas, collaborating on projects, pushing the boundaries of what's possible across all realities. The Admiral's third eye closed in resignation as he imagined the paperwork this would generate. But he couldn't help smiling, a habit he'd picked up from humans over the past year. The galaxy, no, the multiverse, had changed irrevocably since that first quantum skip, and somehow, impossibly, it had changed for the better. "I'll help you draft the proposal," he found himself saying. "But please, let's not mention the quantum gaming community's latest project to the Council just yet." "You mean their attempt to create quantum links to fictional universes?" Sarah asked innocently. "Don't worry, that's still in early development. Though the beta tests are showing some interesting results." In the distance, a ship Quantum skipped into view, a new design that merged traditional galactic engineering with human quantum innovation. Its hull bore the logo of the recently established Interspecies Innovation Initiative, surrounded by the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto since joining the galactic community: "The impossible is just beta testing." As Admiral Kex watched Sarah pull up preliminary designs for the Interuniversal Conference facility, complete with quantum-enhanced reality spaces for attendees from universes with different physical constants, he reflected on how far they'd come from that first moment when a junior analyst had burst into his office with impossible readings. The galaxy had learned that impossible things happened every day, especially when humans were involved. The multiverse was opening up, reality itself was turning out to be more flexible than anyone had imagined, and somewhere in Nebraska, a teenager was probably already figuring out how to optimize it all. And somehow, that felt exactly right.